The authorities are arresting some people across the country, but certainly not enough. In red states, these things are not continuing because in red states, it turns out that the government is in fact stepping in and arresting people who are violating the law. And if they keep violating the law, they will keep getting arrested. It is only in blue states where they continue to foster flag-burning, pro-Hamas, pro-Hezbollah, anti-Western radicals taking over these campuses. And then they negotiate with them. And here's the thing. Joe Biden is going to continue to allow all of this to happen. So Republicans have been calling for a cut to federal funding for universities that allow for the violation of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, which is, in fact, the proper response by the federal government to universities violating federal law. Now, again, you want to argue with the content of the Civil Rights Act with regard to what sort of speech is protected on campus and all the rest. Those are arguments I can hear. You want to argue that it doesn't apply to Jews, but it does apply to every other group? Now, I think that you are a hypocrite and a liar. So Joe Biden is not going to cut funding. Why? Because he's attempting to buy off all these young voters. He wants their votes. He wants Kaimani James to vote for him. And all he's going to have to do is keep bending over. He's going to have to keep bending over backwards for Kaimani James and the rest. Because they have no endpoint. There is no point at which the revolution is actually achieved. According to Politico, there are a few bars that you have to pass in order to get the federal funding out of these universities. First, an investigation from the Education Department's Office for Civil Rights. That can take a while, but there's no reason it has to take a while. Also, anti-Semitism has not been defined under civil rights law in the same way that, for example, anti-black activity has. But if you are shouting about the Yehud, that's a pretty good indicator that anti-Semitism is being engaged in. Again, an environment of anti-Semitism has clearly been created on campuses like Columbia University. And Joe Biden has refused to even consider the possibility about pulling funds. The White House say they're closely monitoring the campus protests unfolding. Bates says, while every American, this is Andrew Bates, the spokesperson for the White House, while every American has the right to peaceful protest, calls for violence and physical intimidation targeting Jewish students in the Jewish community are blatantly anti-Semitic, unconscionable, and dangerous. They have no place on any college campus or anywhere in the United States of America. Yeah, but you're not doing anything about it, I noticed. And the reason they're not doing anything about it, they want the votes. They want the radicals. Donald Trump is right about this. Donald Trump says, listen, people all over the world are laughing at us. And that is correct. Joe Biden is a weakling. He can't even stop these screaming teenagers from intimidating Jewish students on campus and waving Hamas flags. Here's President Trump correctly calling out the Biden administration.
This courthouse is locked down. There's not a person within 5 blocks. They have more police here than, and I call them New York's finest because that's what they are. And they don't want to be doing this either. They'd like to be straightening out conditions, and they'd like to be at the colleges and making sure that they don't have what's happening, because what's happening at the colleges is a disgrace. All over the world, people are laughing at us. This is the worst run country right now, probably anywhere, just about. You don't get much worse.
Okay, and then Trump went on to say that Joe Biden made a huge deal out of Charlottesville, which he did. He said Charlottesville was nothing compared to this. By the way, he's right. Statistically speaking, he is correct. You're talking about tens of thousands of students all across the country who are engaged in pro-Hamas rallies, waving Hezbollah and Hamas flags, as opposed to a couple of hundred morons at the Unite the Right rally. That was the white supremacist rally in Charlottesville in 2017. The cost of living has already increased 17% this year and continues to rise despite interest rate controls. Now more than ever, you need to be confident in the financial services companies you work with. And Birch Gold is the proven industry leader you want on your side. They show you how precious metals investments can fortify your lifestyle and your retirement even in turbulent economic times. Birch Gold understands that navigating financial decisions can be intimidating. If you're considering converting an existing retirement account into a precious metals IRA, their dedicated in-house IRA department is there to guide you. Birch Gold values your questions and concerns. Their team is always available to provide answers and clarity. Whether it's about fees, taxes on rollovers, or the timing of the process, they're here to ensure you feel heard and informed. Text Ben to 989898 to talk to one of Birch Gold's experts and claim your free info kit on gold. You'll learn how to convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold. The best part is it's not going to cost you a penny out of pocket. Just text Ben to 989898. Again, text Ben to 989898 to get started with my friends over at Birch Gold. Get all the information, then think about investing just a little bit of money in precious metals. Text Ben to 989898 to get started. Trump put out a statement on Truth Social saying crooked Joe Biden would say constantly that he ran because of Charlottesville. Well, if that's the case, he's done a really terrible job because Charlottesville is like a peanut compared to the riots and anti-Israel protests happening all over our country right now. And it's crooked Joe's fault because he sends the wrong message every single time. The fact is that crooked Joe Biden hates Israel and hates the Jewish people. The problem is that he hates the Palestinians even more, and he just doesn't know what to do. Well, that last part is discombobulated. I'm not sure exactly what he means by that. What is clear, however, is that Joe Biden is weak in the face of all of this because he is, in fact, unbelievably weak in the face of all this. So the White House then blasted Trump for saying that Charlottesville was peanuts compared to this. But the White House won't even make clear statements. Joe Biden has made one statement so far, and in that statement, he has condemned the anti-Semitic activities on campus and also condemned people who, quote unquote, don't understand the plight of the Palestinians, which is both sidesing it if ever there was some. Meanwhile, they've deployed the second gentleman, Douglas Emhoff, the only Jew they could find, to go speak with the Columbia University Hillel director, along with an Orthodox rabbi affiliated with the school. He called up the Hillel director, Brian Cohen, and Orthodox Union JLIC rabbi, Eli Buckler, and he recognized that while every American has the right to freedom of speech and to protest peacefully, hate speech and calls for violence against Jews is both anti-Semitic and unacceptable. Let's just be real about this. It wasn't Joe Biden who called. It wasn't Kamala Harris who called. It was Kamala Harris's husband who shows up for asinine announcements about Hanukkah every year. Like that's the official Jewish emissary, the envoy to the college kids who are Jewish and who are being intimidated off of campus. By the way, here's the thing. Joe Biden and his campaign, they're morons. You know how many points they could win with the American people for saying people who burn American flags and fly Hamas flags and shout from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free, and shout about the killing of Jews, that those people are disgusting and we don't want their votes. You know how many more votes he would win by doing that? Young people don't even care about this. There's a new poll out from the Harvard Youth Poll 2024, 18 to 29-year-olds. Okay, and here is what it finds. By issue, what are the issues that people actually care about? The major issues facing America, which is the most important. At the very bottom of the heap of all the issues, number 16 of 16 is student debt, which Joe Biden has been trying to push out there, right? He's been saying, I'm going to alleviate all your student debt. Now all the youngs will vote for me. They don't care. They don't care. By the way, you want to know why they don't care about their student debt? Their student debt is racking up at a 0.07% interest rate. I mean, like the interest rates on FAFSA loans are really, really, really low. Compared to other loans, that is not, and people are paying like $50 a month to pay back their student loans. But put that aside. The second to last issue on the list of concerns for 18 to 29-year-olds, according to this Harvard Youth Poll, Israel-Palestine. Only 34% of these people call this a major issue. Only 34%. Among Democrats, only 37%. It is nearly last on the list. And that is where Joe Biden is putting his focus because he has been completely captured by his idiot aides. Meanwhile, by the way, it should be worthwhile noting here that there is in fact a conflict in the Middle East in which Israel is in fact correct and Hamas is in fact wrong. But again, because Joe Biden wants to win those Dearborn, Michigan voters, he keeps trying to both sides it. Despite the fact that apparently yesterday, remember, the United States is idiotically, in asinine fashion, now trying to build a humanitarian aid pier in the Mediterranean. So what happened yesterday? Apparently, terrorists in the Gaza Strip then launched mortars at it. Remember, the claim is that Israel won't allow the aid into Gaza. That's not true. Israel's been allowing hundreds of trucks of aid into the Gaza Strip every day for months. But now, Hamas is literally firing mortars at the humanitarian aid pier because they want the human suffering. They want the Palestinians to suffer, specifically so idiots on the left will continue to pretend that it's Israel doing it. UN officials were touring the site with Israeli troops at the time, and they had to be rushed to a shelter by the Israeli troops. So once again, the Israelis protecting the UN, and Hamas firing at the UN, and the UN targeting the Israelis. Meanwhile, the International Criminal Court, which is just a wretched hive of scum and villainy, right? Again, the ICC is a pseudo court set up by the United Nations that supposedly has the power of international law behind it. But really what it is it's just a bunch of far left and evil states that combine to target whomever they seek to target in the ICC. It has no real enforcement power unless you can get another one of the states, particularly in Europe, to enforce the rulings of the ICC. They're now attempting to bring individual cases against the Israeli prime minister, the Israeli defense minister, and the head of the Israeli army. So they're literally criminalizing the existence of the state of Israel at the International Criminal Court. The United States should pull its money forthwith. The ICC has always been a stupid idea, just like the UN. Both the ICC and the UN ought to be disbanded. The United States ought to pull all funding from both of these organizations because they are in fact trash. By the way, how do we know they're trash? The United States won't even make itself subject to the ICC. The United States has laws on the books that prevent its military from being dragged into the ICC. Why? Because we're afraid that our generals are going to get called in to the ICC and then arrested. So why the hell are we funding an organization like that? Are you tired of the lies and the twist of the mainstream media talking points? Yeah, me too. Join me in my newest series, Fact, where I dismantle and bring truth to this tiring mainstream agenda.